Hey everybody, welcome to Cycling Videos Online, your destination to begin your journey on your indoor workouts. So today's adventure is an absolutely spectacular ride. We're beginning at about 10,000 feet above sea level in Echo Lake. It's at the bottom of the mountain formerly known as Mount Evans, now Mount Blue Sky, and we work our way up over the pass and we begin our descent. We're going to go fast down some steep, winding roads. We're going to go through some beautiful, beautiful valleys, and then we go down the spectacular Bear Creek Canyon all the way until we get to Morrison, Colorado, which is at Denver. So we're descending from 11,000 feet all the way down to about 5,000 feet. This particular workout is an interval workout that is designed to specifically target your efficiency in your aerobic zones. So it's ideal workout for recovery day, and it's just a really good, feel-good workout. So hop on your bike, lace up, and let's hit the road. You are listening to the default audio track, which includes instructional narrative. If you'd like to turn off the instructional narrative to listen to just music, simply press the audio button on your DVD remote. Press it again for track 3, which is just the natural sounds of the ride. Welcome everybody. This is Heart Health 2. Mountain roads through colorful Colorado. We're starting at Echo Lake. We're about 12 miles from Bergen Park, Evergreen. And we're actually going to start out here on a hill. We're going to climb up a little over 11,000 feet before we actually begin our descent back to Denver. So Heart Health is a awesome workout series that gives you a chance to recover a little bit, catch your breath, get some activity going while you get to take it easy. And there's been a lot of requests for the second DVD in this series. Bunch of sandbaggers out there. We're going to have a little bit of fun today on this video. Hope you enjoy it. I'm going to bring up the efforts a little bit higher from the previous time, or Heart Health 1, where we were maintaining a heart rate of around 60 to 65% of our maximum. And today we're going to bring it up just a bit. But first we're going to have a little fun with this. Just a little review on Heart Health 1. We talked about the importance of being a proficient cyclist. And proficiencies include a lot of different components of cycling, that allows you to stay in the saddle for a longer time. And today's ride, we're looking at about an hour and a half bike ride to get down to Denver from here. And it's all downhill, so we'll be taking it easy for the most part, but for this uphill part, we're going to play around a little bit. So what we should be doing right now is spinning at a cadence of about 80 RPM in our easiest gear, lowest resistance. If you're on a spin bike, take off all your resistance and then just add a little bit of tension to take the slack out of the belt. And if you're on your bike with a trainer, you shouldn't have any added resistance through the trainer. and we should be in our easiest gear. So the instruction today is going to allow us to focus on getting to know our heart and what efforts produce what types of heart rates. We're going to be looking at things like how cadence and resistance affects our heart rate. It's important to understand how our heart responds to changes in effort. Right now I'm spinning at a cadence of about 80 and my heart rate is right around 65%. And the reason why it's important to understand our hearts and how effort affects this is it allows us to better regulate our efforts so we can pace ourselves. So let's just make sure we kind of have our heart rates established. We'll pedal for another 30 seconds or so at 80 RPM. And I'd like you to note what your heart rate is as we climb up this little hill. Shouldn't say little. It's actually a pretty big climb, and I was, I turned around and echo and came back down the hill, so I just climbed about 3,000 feet. Sound a little pooped. So right now my heart rate is set at about 66%. Doesn't look like it's going anywhere. Cadence of 80, and we're in our easiest gear. Your heart rate might vary, and that's okay. If your heart rate is a little bit higher, that's okay. If it's a little lower, that's fine too. And what I want to do at this point here is we're just going to shift into one higher gear. So if you're in your easiest gear, let's just add one click of resistance. If you're on a spin bike, add about a quarter turn, just so you feel a little bit more resistance on your legs. And we want to keep that cadence right at 80. And let's watch what our heart rate does here. I'm gonna do this for another 30 seconds or so. And watch our heart rate go up. Now it's real important that we maintain that cadence of 80. We're not going above that, we're not dropping below. Once your heart rate has settled on a value, it doesn't look like it's going to change, we're going to add another notch of resistance. So go ahead and add another click on the trainer, keeping the 80 RPM. Add another quarter turn on your spin bike, keeping the cadence at 80. And let's let our heart rate slowly come up. And we should be coming up to about 70% here. And let's add another increase in resistance, keeping again the cadence. We're just going to keep it at 80 the whole time. Let's bring our heart rate up a little bit more. We'll bring it up to about 75%. If you're at 75% of max, you can just maintain that resistance and cadence value. If you're not at 75%, add some more resistance. keeping the cadence at 80. Well, I've reached my target heart rate, so I'm going to stop adding resistance, just keeping the cadence set at 80. I'm at 75% of max. So let's just hold it here so we can make sure that we're not going to bust the bubble. If you go above 77%, back off your resistance. So the reason I picked this effort level between 75 to 77% of max is because we're still aerobic, but we're really walking the edge of the aerobic zone where if we went just a little bit harder, we'd actually become anaerobic. Now, you should feel your skin feeling a little cool here, especially if you've got a fan on, because we're just starting to break a sweat. Kind of a cold sweat, because we're not working so hard that our body is really hot, but we are sweating, so that'll kind of keep you cool, especially if you have a fan on, or in our case here we're going back downhill, but we're not actually at the top of this climb yet. So at this level of intensity, our muscles are still able to utilize the oxygen that we're actually breathing in and out of our lungs in order to produce the work or power to keep our legs moving and keep our bike moving. So if we increased our efforts much further, our muscles begin to actually go into oxygen debt, and meaning that our bodies won't be able, or our muscles won't be able to absorb enough oxygen from breathing all by itself for our muscles to produce work. And at this stage, we'd actually begin what's called anaerobic respiration. And in order to prevent significant oxygen debt in the muscles, our bodies begin producing a compound called ATP, which is abbreviation for adenosine triphosphate, in order to maintain oxygen supplies to our muscles. And the initial stage of this process occurs at about 80% of maximum heart rate. And this is basically the lower stage of the anaerobic zone. Where our muscles are supplemented by anaerobic processes, or ATP as a fuel source. And once we begin going anaerobic, stored fats and stored sugars no longer really play a significant role in energy production. Simple sugars and blood glucose is instead quickly utilized to fuel ATP production. That's a beautiful view right there. That's the Continental Divide back there. So when we hit higher levels like 92 to 97%, most of us reach a critical value called our VO2 max. And VO2 max is an effort where our body can't, our body can no longer support muscle function using aerobic respiration. and the production of power at that point is 100% anaerobic. But we can only do this for so long before our bodies have to rest back to anaerobic level in order to recharge our muscles with oxygen and produce more ATP. So right now what I want to do is we're going to simulate this hill climb a little bit better. Let's add a lot of resistance to our trainer, about an 8 out of 10. So up that tension. Let's simulate this hill climb. If you're on your trainer bike, use a big ring up front and 7 or 8 in the back. And now what's important is that we slow down our cadence so that we do not go over 77%. So let's slow it way down, keeping our heart rate at 77% of max. And I'm pedaling at 50% or 50 RPM. I got to actually bring it down a little bit more than that. So at this level of effort, if you can go 77% of max, you're climbing a big hill like this, keeping your cadence lower, you can establish the same heart rate. Well, you can go almost indefinitely, forever, and be able to make much better time over a long ride. So now we're climbing, and let's imagine that somebody's passing us and our ego can't handle it. So using the same resistance, what I want to do is pick up our cadence, but first memorize what your cadence is right now. Mine is 55, got my 75%. So note your cadence and your heart rate. And now let's pick up our cadence and add about 20 RPM to it. So I'm going up to 75, almost 80. And what we want to do is we want to drive our heart rate up to about 90% of max by the time we get to the top of this hill. Watch your heart rate go up. Notice how fast or slow your heart rate is increasing with that added cadence. So we're chasing this person, this imaginary person, up this steep hill. We're at 11,000 feet. Heart rate's going up. I'm up to 87%. I'm gonna add a little bit more cadence, bringing my cadence up to about 90. Now I'm at 90%. I want to bring up my heart rate just a little bit more. It's about 92. And we want to bring it up high enough where we think that we may not be able to sustain the effort level. I'm at 92% of my maximum effort. We're almost up. And I'm at 93. Once you hit your target, 92, what I want you to do is only decrease your cadence back to where you started from. So I was at 55. I'm coming back down to my cadence of 55 as we begin our descent. And what I'd like you to observe is what's happening to to your heart rate at that cadence that originally you were able to have a heart rate of 75 to 77, and see how long it takes you to get back down. Now this is kind of sad because we're descending. We're still pedaling slow. But don't worry, a lot of video left. And this is an experiment that I think is really important for everybody to understand. So I'm still pedaling at a 55, between 55 to 60. That's where I left off at before I jumped up to 90. And my heart rate is still anaerobic, and I'm at 86%. Now the question is here, if we continue pedaling using the same power output or our cadence with the resistance set where we left off at, will our heart rate ever get back down to 75% if we don't change a thing? Or how long will it take to get back down to 75%? Now, I'm still over 85, or I'm still over 80%. Made 84. And you can see how long the recovery process is to get your heart rate back down to where it was using the same exact power that you left off at. Now, if you had never made that power change, you could see how much energy you save by maintaining that aerobic heart rate throughout the climb or throughout an event. And we got a little climb here, so let's just keep this cadence at 55, 60, wherever you're at in that high gear. Now let's see if we can get our heart rate down to where we left off at, 75%. And I submit that it will not happen. I'm still over 80. Okay, well, I'm gonna just call it here and say we can't ever recover our heart rate if we continue the same exact power requirement that we had left off with. So let's go ahead and put it in nice low gear again, a 1 out of 10 on the resistance, then your easiest gear. So let's bring our cadence up to 80. And we'll let our heart rate drop down and let it settle. So most beginning riders, now that experiment was to let you see what happens to your heart rate and to what your power can and heart can do. Well, that wasn't said very well. I wanted to show everybody that if you go into the red, it takes a really long time to bring your heart rate back to an aerobic level. Even when you're slowing down or coasting down the backside of a hill, if you want to try to reproduce the power at aerobic levels and then jump into the red zone, you won't be able to reproduce those same power levels with a aerobic or a lower heart rate. So every time you go into the red, it's like your heart rate has to go up to the next level, the next floor or story. and you're never going to be able to bring it back down, or it takes a long time to bring it back down, where the power and heart rates are consistent with the start of a aerobic workout. I hope that makes sense. So we should just be easy pedaling here. Let's bring our heart rate back down to about 70% of our maximum. You know, use a easy gear cadence around 70 to 80, whatever you need to do to bring your heart rate back down to 70%. Now, a lot of starting or beginning riders, what they tend to do is, you know, if they're riding in a distant event or a time trial or a triathlon or whatever, where they're basically doing a solo effort, what they tend to do is work really hard on the climbs and then try to rest and recover on the descents. And each time they go into the red zone on that climb, they're hitting what's called a VO2 max, most likely, where they're completely anaerobic, and then they try to recover back on the descent, but you never ever recover what you lost on the climb, as long as you're going into the red over and over again like that. Professional triathletes, professional racers, they will maintain a steady heart rate throughout an entire event. So regardless if you have rolling hills, flat terrain, big mountain climbs, they pick a heart rate that they can sustain throughout the entire event that produces the most or the highest average power throughout that event. And they are very scientific about finding what heart rate produces the highest average power over the duration of an event. So usually for most professionals, that heart rate is below what's called threshold intensities, and they really walk the line between going completely anaerobic and slightly anaerobic, if that makes sense. So if you're racing with a group of people, and what you're trying to do is stay on a wheel, or even if you're just riding with a group of people and all you want to do is, keep company with them, chances are you're pedaling harder on the uphills and resting on the downhills. And that might be a necessity for that type of an event or that type of bike ride, but if you're doing a solo effort, that is not the best strategy for a ride. Although, doing an interval workout like that, where you're going high efforts, high power, followed by low efforts, low power, an interval workout like that is actually very healthy, very good for you, makes you much stronger. But with respect to efficiency, over a long distance event, it's not very efficient at all. So we should be down to about 70% of max, and what I'd like to do at this stage here is maintain an average heart rate of 70% over 3 minutes, and then bring our heart rate up to 75% for only 1 minute. Now, when you were climbing that hill and you clicked one gear to see what your heart rate did it go up 1%, 2 percentage points, and you're maintaining that 80 RPM? Or did you have to shift 2 gears to go up to 75%? Or, how many times did you have to turn your dial to bring your heart rate up to 75% for your heart rate to get up there? That's all you need to do here. So after about 3 minutes, we're going to add a little resistance, bring our heart rate up to 75%. We're not going to rush it. We're just going to add that resistance and continuing pedaling at a cadence of about 80. And then we'll do that for about a minute, or pretty much as soon as our heart rate hits 75, and then we back down to our easiest gear so we can get our heart rate back down to 70.